Hey friends, welcome to the jungle.
Brace yourselves, friends. Today we are going to be talking about an adult game. Hey, put that thing away, there aren't any titties in this one. There's also no foul language, no swearing or drugs. In fact, this is one of the most wholesome games that I have played in decades. I'm talking about Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall, a game that's based on the toy brand of the same name. Wild River Games, the developers and publishers of this title, have promoted this game as a family-friendly tactical turn-based game, and I can see many kids enjoying this one for sure. But to me, this is an adult game because it feels like the people who made it weren't a day younger than 40. It feels like a game that was made by dads and uncles, for kids, and for dads and uncles. If you are younger than 12, you probably shouldn't be watching this channel. You hear that, Patrick? Don't let your kids watch these videos, man. But chances are that you are going to have a good time with this game. And if you are older than 35, Eldrador is probably going to remind you of some of the awesome stuff that you had when you were a kid. There's ultimately amazing power metal music, if a little bit cheesy.
We have no cheese.
There are bad ice puns, like the ones we got from Arnie's Mr. Freeze in Batman and Robin, and we got the hilariously annoying or annoyingly hilarious mini creatures that, to me, feel like a bit of a playful nod to Transformers and Voltron.
Perhaps several robots should transform into a single giant robot.
And that's all fine and cool, but that's just the sauce. Let's talk about the meat. Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall is a turn-based tactical game in which you command the lava creatures, one of the 4 factions in the world of Eldrador, and your goal is to take them on a journey through gardens of stone, icy landscapes, and treacherous jungles on a quest to retrieve the 4 world crystals that you need to stem the tide of evil, also known by its nom de plume, the Shadow Dragon. Is it tropey? Well, yes. But the game is perfectly aware of this, and it resorts to simple yet efficient low-key fourth-wall breaking humor to make the most out of it. And I loved it. But what's the gameplay like? Well, over the course of the game, you recruit different creatures who have unique abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. The game features combat encounters in which the main objective is almost always to get rid of all the bad guys. At the start of the fight, you must choose the 3 creatures that are going to be in your party out of the ones that you have recruited up until that point. And the fights are challenging enough that you'll need to think about your team's balance. For most fights, you want to have a party that has a creature that is capable of taking a beating, a creature that can deal damage, and a creature that can fetch mana efficiently. Crowd control is also a thing in this game. There are a few encounters in which enemies try to overwhelm you, and for those fights, you'd do well to bring along those creatures who have crowd control talents. Your creature's most powerful skills require mana. Mana is a shared resource that can be used by any character, and it drops in the battlefield periodically and in random tiles, so your creatures need to move to set tile to retrieve it. Wolf-like creatures like the Granite Wolf, the Ice Wolf, and the Lava Hyena are particularly good at retrieving mana because they have a lot of mobility. Mana also heals your creatures, which is very interesting because creatures with high mobility also tend to be more fragile, and this adds another dimension to the mana fetching part of the game. Wolf-like creatures don't do as much damage as golem-type creatures, but they have skills that affect multiple enemies as long as they are lined up. If you play your cards right, you can do damage to a bunch of enemies and set them on fire or freeze them and get the mana in one go. You also need to wrap your head around the fact that special skills can be used before regular skills, but once you use your regular skill, the character's turn is over. The characters sometimes refer to combat scenarios as levels, as though they are perfectly aware that they are characters in a video game, which I thought was funny, but I wouldn't say you have levels in this game. Each combat encounter takes place in a different scenario, and all of them have a little something that you have to take into account. Labyrinthian layouts that you need to sort out, catapult or battle caves, as they call it in the game, that do AoE damage every turn, lava surfaces that do damage over time to non-lava creatures, special conditions that annul your go-to tactics, etc. And you often have different winning conditions and secondary objectives. Sometimes you have to protect certain structures, sometimes you have to destroy monoliths, sometimes you have to tear down blockades that keep you from going further in the world map, etc. And these things add further importance to your party composition. Dragons and other creatures have ray types of attack that are particularly efficient at destroying blockades, but creatures that lunge forward, like wolves and rhinos, are almost completely useless against this type of obstacle. It's also worth mentioning that the devs managed to factor in all of these obstacles and special conditions that you find in a level into the game's humorous narrative, and I thought this was brilliant. I'm actually biting my tongue here not to spoil them to you. Okay, so maybe a tiny spoiler won't hurt.
Following a catastrophic defeat,
Following a tactical retreat.
following a tactical retreat, our heroes are on the world plateau.
The creatures at your command are of course the stars of the show, and the game is designed in a way that'll make you want to try out all of them. Gotta try them all. Though of course you will end up having your favorites, I'm sure. Your characters level up automatically, which means that you don't get a say in how they level. Most of the times your creatures get the most boring form of progression there is when they level up. The typical plus X percentage of damage or plus Y percentage of health bonus. But every certain number of levels they get very interesting skills that work more like perks. The Lava Dragon, for example, gets the Mana Meister skill, which allows him to use his special skill without consuming mana the first time he uses it during a battle. I wish there had been at least some mutually exclusive talents for you to choose from every X number of levels, but not every tactical game can be Tactical Breach Wizards, can it? Your creatures do say the funniest things every time they level up, and the voice acting is top notch, so that somewhat compensates the genericness of the leveling up mechanics. There are non-mandatory combat encounters that you can complete to level up your characters faster. Your team can also level up collectively. There are coins that you can gather that are just lying about, and you can earn some more by winning special story-related fights and some non-mandatory combat encounters. And you can use these coins to purchase different upgrades. They don't go beyond your typical plus X percentage health and Y percentage damage increments, but the final upgrade in the lengthiest upgrade path increases your party cap to 4 members. And having 4 party members instead of 3 makes a huge difference, which means that being a completionist pays off in this game. Now, do consider that if you are a tactical guy or gal, you're probably going to find the game a little bit too easy in the normal and hard difficulties, but you have the very hard difficulty level, which is good enough to keep things interesting, and it may even make you scratch your head in some levels near the end. I admit there were a couple of times in which I had to go back to the drawing board and choose a different party composition, one that was better equipped to handle the combat encounter at hand. Make no mistake about it though, if you want your tactical skills to be challenged to the fullest, Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall is probably not the game you should be looking at. I've mentioned Wantless several times here on the channel, which is a tactical RPG with deep, complex, and extremely juicy character progression mechanics and builds. If your fun lies in getting your ass kicked, going back to the drawing board, rethinking your strategy, and then coming back to see if your new plan does the trick, then that's the game you want to be looking at. If you don't like getting your ass kicked, but you still want to enjoy deeply rewarding cross-character synergies, intricate level design, varied hazards and combinations that may work against you or in your favor, depending on how you play the game, and rich enemy variety in which the bad guys get introduced at just the right pace, you might want to take a look at Tactical Breach Wizards instead. Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall has its own appeal, and I still think it's worth getting for you and or your kids and nephews. I can picture you laughing out loud with some of the game's unexpected pearls of humor while you eavesdrop on your kid as he or she plays this thing while you work or something. I can also see you playing the role of a tactical consultant to your kid and having conversations like, "Hey, why don't you take the ice rat instead of a golem for this fight? But dad, the ice rat is a wimp, and these guys hit really hard. Yes, he is a lot more fragile than the golems, but you can have him summon his duplicate to do the tanking. Gee, thank you, Papa, you are the best." Also, I think the game's presentation is absolutely fantastic. The music is somewhere in between cheesy folk metal a la Corky Plani and cheesy power metal a la Rhapsody, and this just hits the right notes for me. No pun intended. The world map is absolutely beautiful, character animations are fantastic and plentiful, and sound effects pack a punch. These things are probably not what you pay the price of the admission, but they certainly do help. Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall is not perfect, of course, and this wouldn't be a ye old entertainment video if I didn't tell you about the things that I didn't like about the game, and about those things that could have been better in my opinion. First, I think your creature skills could have been more varied. I think the devs could have added a little bit more variety to your tactical arsenal without making the game overly complex or difficult. In Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall, you can potentially recruit 20 creatures, and that's a lot of creatures. And each of them has two abilities, a regular ability and a special ability that requires mana to use. And they also have additional perks that add a nice tactical twist to their arsenal of moves. But you could perfectly describe almost all the skills in this game as hits X number of targets in Y range of tiles, because that's the only difference between most of the skills. Some of them knock enemies back 1 or 2 tiles, some freeze enemies, some do damage over time, and some reposition the creature while it does damage. A couple of creatures have abilities that trigger when they get attacked, and the Ice Rat summons a duplicate of itself that tanks and freezes those who attack it, but that's about it. In Tactical Breach Wizards, for example, Dal can summon a box-shaped cover that you can use in combination with your other character's skills in a creative way. Dion can pull enemies against it to deal massive damage to them, and Dal can swap places with it to position herself in a more advantageous position in the battlefield. Banks has a ricocheting attack that goes through enemies and a skill that can transfer damage from one target to another, and these two skills can be combined in beautiful ways. I would have liked if your creatures in Eldrador had a few skills like the ones I just mentioned, and I wish there had been more cross-creature synergies. Second, in Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall, you get around by traversing a map of the 4 worlds. A beautiful map, I might add, but your creature walks way too slowly. I think your character should have moved at least twice as fast, but I think I know why they did this. Every region in the map has an unlockable shortcut between 2 areas that are very distant from each other. Those shortcuts significantly shorten the time it takes to travel back and forth between these areas, and I think these shortcuts are meant to work a bit like building a road in games like Death Stranding or Dustland Delivery. You know, you put the effort into something that makes a basic task a lot easier, and therefore you feel good about it. But in Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall, the problem is that there is just one shortcut per region, so traversing the map still feels like a chore in most areas. Also, the combat encounters that unlock these shortcuts are part of the game's critical path, so when you beat them, it doesn't feel like your spirit of adventure and exploration was rewarded with a more expeditive way to explore the world. I think the game would have been much better if your creature had moved at 200% its current speed. I also would have liked if the shortcuts had worked a little bit like that road building feature that I just talked about in these other games. And this could have been achieved by turning them into some sort of reward for you wandering off the beaten trail and engaging in non-mandatory combat encounters. And it would have been the icing on the cake if these shortcuts had granted you access to hidden areas, or if they had worked as some sort of secret passageway into the adjacent world. And last, but most definitely not least, we need to address the elephant in the room, more like the mammoth in the crystal store. I'm talking about the tutorial section of the game. I admit I was this close to quitting the game during the tutorial section. It's the worst thing about the game in every respect. First, it spawns over too many encounters, or levels as they call them. So of course it's doomed to outstay its welcome. As it is, the game explains one combat mechanic per tutorial level. I know this game is meant for kids, but kids aren't stupid, you know? In fact, they are probably capable of learning these types of things a lot faster than us adults. And it's not like the game's mechanics are all that complex either. Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall's humor is silly in the extreme, and I loved it, I absolutely did. But during the initial stretch of the game, I felt like it was trying a little too hard and the jokes just weren't landing. But further into the game, when I started laughing at the jokes, I thought, this game is actually funny. Maybe I just needed to warm up to the characters a little bit. But nope, I played the game again, and yes, that's how good it is, and the humor still didn't work for me during the tutorial section of the game. And third, and the worst of all, you cannot skip the tutorial even when you are playing the game for the second time. Then there are a couple of things that go from personal nitpicks to things that I consider to be wasted opportunities. The creature with which you move in the world map is the Lava Smasher. But you know what would have been awesome? If your character had changed depending on your party's leader at the time, and the leader could have been the first creature on the team left to right. And you know what would have been extra awesome? If you had little obstacles on the map that you could only overcome if you had a certain type of creature as your leader. Think Breath of Fire 2 when you were in the surface map. In that game, you needed to switch over to Jean if you wanted to explore water areas, or to Sten if you wanted to cross chasms. In Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall, there could have been blockades that only golem-type creatures could knock down, or certain topographic accidents that could only be flown over by dragons, or by the griffin. Now imagine if some of those areas that were locked behind creature-type specific obstacles had been non-mandatory zones with non-mandatory combat encounters and special rewards. Man, that would have been the absolute pinnacle. The creatures you command in Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall are the absolute stars of the show in every respect. They have unique skills, but also unique personalities that are masterfully brought to life by some of the most fun voice acting that I've ever heard. You have the overly dumb stone golem, the deluded lava scorpion who talks as though he's some sort of spirit of vengeance a la Ghost Rider, the Schwarzenegger sound-alike ice giant who is always ready to deliver those ice puns, the absolutely hilariously arrogant ice griffin, etc, etc, etc. So yeah, these characters are fantastic. Then why do I mention them amongst the things that could have been better in the game? See, this game has some pretty fun and funny dialogue before, during, and at the end of each fight, but it's always the lava creatures that get to do the talking, even if you don't have any lava creatures in your party at the time of the fight. And man, the very few conversations and sound snippets that you get from each creature that joins you are liquid gold, and I wanted more. I just couldn't get enough of these guys. That's how good they are. And I know that there are 20 creatures, dozens of combat encounters, and each creature in your party has 2 or 3 things to say per encounter. And I know it would have been a lot of work to write and record so many dialogue lines from so many different voice actors, but I think it would have been worth the effort to make it so that the creatures who were in your party at the time of the fight had been the ones to do the talking, and it would have given the game endless replay value, though it still has plenty of replay value as it is. To me, Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall is a fun, mostly well-paced and unpretentious tactical turn-based game that has a lot of heart, ridiculously awesome voice acting, and badass music. And I just don't see you making it through this game without laughing out loud at least a couple of times or 3. It is a single-player game, but you can't play it all by yourself, or you can have your kids and nephews play it while you play the role of the tactical consultant. And you don't ever have to worry about you or your kids being hit over the head with a message or some such other nonsense, which in this day and age I think it's quite valuable. Eldrador Creatures Shadowfall is getting a sizable discount until May the 5th. I played it twice, put 35 hours into it, and it's the only game of which I can say that I've gotten 100% of the achievements on Steam. And I think those are all signs of a good game. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, thank you for watching all the way up until now. If you like what you are seeing on this channel, please consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell to avoid the usual YouTube shenanigans. Come check us out on Discord if you don't mind all the boomer talk that goes on there. I personally love it and wouldn't change it for anything. And share the video if you thought it was cool. Bye everyone.
You're excused. You can go back to playing video games.